Commander Vex Thornfield had attended exactly 47 Galactic Council meetings in his military career, and somehow each one managed to be more insufferably pompous than the last. Today's gathering on Space Station Nexus Prime was shaping up to be a real winner. "Let me understand this correctly," Ambassador Zlock hissed through his reptilian vocal cords, his scaled head tilting in what humans had learned to recognize as condescension. "Your species brings pets to military operations?" Vex leaned back in his chair, one eyebrow raised in that practiced expression of mild amusement that had gotten him through 2 decades of dealing with alien bureaucrats. At his feet, Rex, a massive gray wolf with eyes that seemed to see straight through souls, appeared to be dozing. The wolf's chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, completely unbothered by the circus around him. "Well," Vex drawled, "when you put it like that, it sounds almost adorable, doesn't it?" General Quinn, the insectoid representative whose species had mastered interstellar warfare, but apparently not sarcasm, clicked his mandibles in what might have been laughter or digestive distress. "Commander Thornfield, surely you must see the tactical liability and emotional attachments during combat operations." "Oh, absolutely," Vex nodded seriously. "Nothing screams tactical liability like 40,000 years of evolutionary partnership." The various alien delegates exchanged those looks that universal translators couldn't quite capture, the kind that said, "Oh look, the primitives are talking again." Ambassador Zlock's tail swished with obvious amusement as he addressed the room. "Distinguished colleagues, I believe we're witnessing a perfect example of why human military doctrine remains so quaint. While we've developed advanced artificial intelligence, quantum targeting systems, and molecular-level warfare capabilities, humans still rely on their ancient emotional bonds with lower species." Rex's left ear twitched slightly. Vex noticed he always noticed but kept his expression neutral. "Lower species," Vex repeated thoughtfully. "Interesting perspective. Tell me, Ambassador, how's your species' success rate with detecting stealth infiltration?" "Our thermal imaging arrays are 94% effective," Zlock replied proudly. "Huh. Rex here has never missed one. Ever." Vex scratched behind the wolf's ear, and Rex opened one amber eye to regard the room with what could only be described as polite interest. "But you're probably right. Technology is definitely more reliable than instincts honed by millions of years of survival." The chamber erupted in various sounds of alien amusement, clicks, hisses, and harmonic tones that roughly translated to sophisticated laughter. General Quinn leaned forward, his compound eyes glittering. "Commander, I propose a practical demonstration. The upcoming joint military exercise on Zirion 7 would provide an excellent opportunity to evaluate these primitive tactics against modern warfare." Vex felt that familiar warmth in his chest, the same feeling he'd gotten right before every spectacular victory in his career. It was the moment when superior opponents revealed they had no idea what they were actually up against. "A challenge," he said slowly. "How delightfully civilized of you." "Indeed. We shall see how well your emotional support animals perform under actual combat conditions," Zlock added, his forked tongue flicking out in what passed for a smile. Rex yawned, showing teeth that could crush titanium. Several delegates unconsciously shifted in their seats. "Gentleman," Vex stood, Rex flowing to his feet with liquid grace, "you're about to learn why humans never stopped partnering with wolves." He paused at the chamber entrance. Fair warning, though, some lessons hurt more than others. The transport ship to Zirion 7 gave Vex plenty of time to introduce his team to their alien observers, who had insisted on documenting what they expected to be a comprehensive failure of human military doctrine. If there was one thing Vex had learned about aliens, it was their absolute commitment to being wrong in the most educational ways possible. Sergeant Luna Martinez, Vex announced as a compact woman with steel-gray eyes approached, followed by a lean black wolf whose movement was so fluid it seemed almost supernatural. Luna served 3 tours in the Centauri conflicts, and has never lost a single member of her squad. Luna nodded curtly to the assembled aliens. "And this is Scout." He's saved more lives than your medical computers have processed casualties. Scout sat perfectly still, but his ears swiveled constantly, processing sounds the ship's sensors couldn't even detect. Ambassador Zlock sniffed dismissively. Impressive, I'm sure. Though I notice the animal seems rather twitchy. Are you certain it's psychologically stable for combat operations? Scout once tracked a sniper through 17 miles of urban terrain during a thunderstorm, Luna replied flatly. The sniper was using full electromagnetic cloaking. Scout found him in 43 minutes. Impossible, General Quinn clicked. No biological entity could. And then there's Corporal Jake Peterson, Vex interrupted cheerfully. We call him Boom. A mountain of a man with an infectious grin bounded over, accompanied by what looked like a golden retriever crossed with a small bear. The wolf's tail wagged enthusiastically as he sniffed each alien in turn, causing several to back away nervously. This is Ranger, Boom announced proudly. Best explosive detection specialist in 3 sectors. Aren't you, buddy? Ranger barked once and immediately sat, staring intensely at General Quinn's equipment belt. General, Vex said casually, you might want to check your gear. It's preposterous. This equipment was inspected by our finest technicians. Quinn stopped mid-sentence as his portable scanner began beeping frantically. He stared at a small energy cell that was indeed showing signs of critical instability. Ranger can smell molecular breakdown in standard power cells from about 50 meters away, Boom explained as Quinn hastily removed the faulty device. Comes in handy when people are trying to blow things up. The aliens exchanged glances that even universal translators couldn't misinterpret, the kind that said, that was probably just a coincidence. And finally, Vex gestured to a slight figure emerging from the shadows near the rear of the transport. Private Maya Swift. Maya materialized so quietly that half the aliens jumped. Beside her, a wolf that seemed to be made of liquid darkness regarded the group with eyes like green stars. Shadow and I specialize in reconnaissance, Maya said in a voice barely above a whisper. We've been observing your conversation from the ventilation system for the past 20 minutes. Ambassador Zlock's scales actually ruffled. That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected. Your sensors detected Maya entering the vents, Vex confirmed, checking his wrist display. They never registered her leaving them, or coming back, or moving through the walls above your heads. Shadow yawned, revealing teeth that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The point is, Vex continued, settling back into his seat while Rex resumed his position at his feet, what you call primitive emotional bonds, we call 40,000 years of partnership refinement. Wolves and humans didn't just evolve together, we evolved because of each other. Fascinating anthropological theory, Zlock said with the tone of someone discussing particularly boring weather. I'm sure it will provide excellent data for our xenosociology departments after this exercise concludes. Rex opened both eyes and fixed them on the ambassador with the kind of stare that had made prey animals reconsider their life choices for millennia. Zlock's confident posture wavered slightly. Oh, it'll provide data all right, Vex murmured. The question is whether you'll live long enough to analyze it. The transport's intercom crackled to life. Attention all personnel. We are approaching Zerion 7. Planetary insertion in 2 hours. Through the viewport, a gray-green world spun slowly beneath them, its surface scarred by ancient battles and newer scorch marks from ongoing conflicts. Somewhere down there, hostile forces were preparing to test the galaxy's most underestimated military partnership. Vex scratched Rex behind the ears and smiled. This was going to be fun. Zerion 7 had the distinctive charm of a planet that had been bombed into submission so many times it had given up trying to look pleasant. The joint military exercise base sprawled across a barren plain surrounded by twisted metallic forests that sang in minor keys when the wind hit them just right. Humans will take perimeter security, General Quinn announced during the tactical briefing, his mandibles clicking in barely contained amusement. We've positioned your team around the ammunition depot. It's suitable for your skill level. Vex examined the holographic display with the careful attention of someone who had survived too many wars by taking nothing for granted. The depot was a massive underground facility containing enough firepower to level several small moons. It was also positioned at the exact center of the exercise area, making it the most strategically critical location on the entire planet. "How generous of you," he said dryly. "Guard duty at the most important target in the operational theater. I'm touched by your confidence in our abilities." "Think of it as babysitting," Ambassador Zlok added helpfully. "While the real forces handle actual combat scenarios, you can practice your animal husbandry skills." Luna Martinez made a sound that might have been a cough or possibly the noise someone makes when they're restraining themselves from committing violent acts on pompous reptiles. Scout's ears flattened against his head, and several aliens took an unconscious step backward. "Something wrong with your pet?" Zlok inquired. "Scout doesn't like the smell of condescension," Luna replied evenly. "Makes him think of prey animals that don't realize they're already caught." The tactical display updated to show hostile force positions theoretical Shadowkin raiders who were supposed to provide opposition during the exercise. According to the briefing, they were advanced stealth specialists who could bend light around themselves, making them essentially invisible to most detection methods. "The Shadowkin will attempt to infiltrate our positions using their cloaking technology," General Quinn explained. "Our thermal imaging networks and quantum sensors will track their movements and coordinate appropriate responses." Rex lifted his head and sniffed the air coming through the base's filtration system. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he exchanged what could only be called a meaningful look with Vex. Commander Maya Swift materialized beside the tactical display so quietly that 3 aliens jumped, shadows detecting unusual scent patterns in the northwestern quadrant. "Something doesn't match the exercise parameters." "Define doesn't match," Vex said, though he already knew the answer from the way Rex's hackles were starting to rise. "The exercise briefing said theoretical Shadowkin raiders," Maya replied. "Shadow says there's nothing theoretical about what's moving through those forests." Ambassador Zlok's laugh came out as a series of hissing sounds. "Commander, surely you're not suggesting your animals can detect threats that our advanced sensor networks cannot?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Vex said calmly. "I'm telling you, your exercise just became real, and you're about to discover why humans never stop trusting their wolves." General Quinn checked his scanner with obvious skepticism. "Our equipment shows no hostile signatures beyond the programmed exercise scenarios." Boom's voice crackled over the comm system from his position near the depot's eastern entrance. Folks, Ranger's doing that thing where he gets really quiet and starts staring at stuff. You know, that thing that usually means we're all about to have a very bad day." "Elaboration, Corporal?" Vex requested. "Whatever's out there, it's carrying enough explosive compounds to redecorate this entire valley. And it's getting closer." The tactical display remained stubbornly clear of enemy contacts. The alien commanders exchanged those looks again, the ones that said they were dealing with humans who had clearly spent too much time in space. "Perhaps," Zlok suggested with elaborate patience, "your animals are simply responding to the stress of an unfamiliar environment. It's well documented that primitive bonding creates anxiety responses that." Every wolf on the base began howling simultaneously. It wasn't the howl humans associated with loneliness or communication. It was the sound wolves made when death was walking toward their pack, and they were prepared to meet it with teeth bared. "All units," Vex's voice cut through the cacophony with the kind of calm authority that had carried him through 2 decades of impossible situations. "This exercise just went live. Unknown hostiles inbound. Defend the depot at all costs." Through the base's reinforced windows, they could see absolutely nothing moving in the twisted forests beyond. But 40,000 years of evolutionary partnership don't lie, and every human on Zurian 7 knew their wolves had just declared war on something their alien allies couldn't even detect yet. The real education was about to begin. The Shadowkin hit the main alien positions like a nightmare made of living darkness. One moment General Quinn was explaining to his staff why human-animal partners were a tactical liability. The next moment his communication officer was screaming into dead channels as invisible enemies systematically destroyed their quantum sensor network. Base command to all units came the increasingly frantic voice over the emergency frequencies. We have confirmed hostile contact in sectors 7 through 12. Repeat, this is not an exercise. We are under attack by unknown forces. Vex crouched behind a twisted metal barrier near the ammunition depot's main entrance, Rex pressed against his side like a 60-pound early warning system. Through his headset, he could hear the chaos erupting across the exercise area as alien forces discovered that all their advanced technology was worthless against enemies they couldn't see. "Luna, report," he said into his comm. "Northwestern perimeter holding," came the crisp response. Scouts tracked 18 separate infiltration attempts. "They're not getting through." "Boom? What?" "Eastern approach is getting spicy, boss. Ranger says we've got explosive specialists trying to breach the depot's secondary entrance. I'm introducing them to some of my own fireworks." The ground shook as Boom's introduction proved characteristically enthusiastic. "Maya." Silence. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, southern perimeter. "Shadow and I have eliminated 7 hostiles attempting to establish sniper positions. They never saw us coming." Ambassador Zlok's voice crackled over the emergency channel, panic finally cracking his usual condescension. "Commander Thornfield, our positions are being overrun. These Shadowkin, they're not following exercise parameters. They're using live ammunition." "Copy that, Ambassador," Vex replied calmly. "Turns out real enemies don't read the same briefing packets we do." Rex suddenly went rigid, his attention focused on a section of empty air about 30 meters away. To human eyes, there was nothing there. To Rex's senses, something very dangerous was moving with predatory intent toward their position. "Contact front," Vex announced, raising his weapon. "Rex has something." The wolf moved like liquid violence, covering 30 meters in heartbeats and launching himself at what appeared to be absolutely nothing. His jaws closed on something that screamed and became visible, a Shadowkin raider whose cloaking technology had been perfect right up until the moment evolution's finest predator decided camouflage was irrelevant. "Holy hell," came Boom's voice over the comm. "Did Rex just bite an invisible guy?" "Shadowkin cloaking bends light," Vex explained as he put 3 rounds into the now visible enemy. "Doesn't do much about scent, body heat, or the sound of breathing." Ranger confirmed. 6 more trying to plant charges on the depot's main supports. Rangers leading me right to them. General Quinn's panic transmission interrupted their coordination. "All units fall back to the depot. We cannot maintain our positions. The enemy has some kind of advanced stealth technology that defeats all our sensors." "Negative, General," Vex replied. "We're not falling back. We're exactly where we need to be." "Commander, you don't understand. These creatures are invisible. Our thermal imaging, our motion detectors, our quantum scanners, nothing works." Rex had found another Shadowkin attempting to scale the depot's outer wall. This one managed half a scream before discovering that wolves don't negotiate. "General," Vex said with the patience of someone explaining basic physics to a child, "your problem isn't that they're invisible. Your problem is that you've been relying on technology to do what evolution already perfected. That's impossible. No biological entity could." "Scout," Luna's voice interrupted, "has just eliminated their communications specialist. Apparently he was hiding in what he thought was the perfect position. Scout thought it smelled like fear and bad decisions." The sound of coordinated gunfire echoed from Maya's position, followed by her whisper-soft voice. Shadow found their command team. "They won't be coordinating anything else today." Through the chaos of battle, one thing was becoming crystal clear to every alien commander on Zirian 7, while their advanced technology was failing spectacularly, the humans and their primitive partners were systematically dismantling an enemy force that had been invisible to everyone else. Rex pressed closer to Vex as more Shadowkin materialized from their failing cloaking fields, drawn by the sounds of their comrades' demise. His amber eyes reflected something that had been honed by millions of years of survival. "All right, boy," Vex murmured, checking his ammunition. "Let's show them what 40,000 years of partnership looks like when the chips are down." The depot needed defending, and there was nowhere else in the galaxy he'd rather be than right here, with Rex at his side, and the sound of alien commanders finally understanding that some technologies couldn't be improved upon. The battle raged for 3 hours before the Shadowkin finally retreated into whatever dimensional pocket they'd crawled out of, leaving behind a battlefield littered with the wreckage of alien confidence. The main alien forces had taken heavy casualties, but their advanced equipment proving about as useful as decorative jewelry against enemies who treated the laws of physics as polite suggestions. "Luna, take Scout and help with medical evacuation in Sector 7, Vex ordered as the all-clear signal finally sounded. Boom. Ranger needs to sweep for any explosive devices they might have left behind. Maya, you and Shadow run perimeter reconnaissance, make sure they're actually gone. His team dispersed with the kind of efficient professionalism that came from surviving the impossible on a regular basis. That left Vex alone at the ammunition depot with Rex, who had settled into his favorite position, sitting perfectly still in the shadows near the main entrance, but looking for all the world like he was taking a well-deserved nap. "You've got this, boy," Vex said, scratching behind Rex's ears. "I need to go explain to some very shaken aliens why their exercise turned into a real war." Rex opened one amber eye, gave Vex a look that clearly said, "I know exactly what I'm doing," and resumed his motionless vigil. An hour later, Ambassador Zlock and the surviving alien commanders came stumbling toward the depot, their retreat covered by Luna's squad. The ambassador's scales were scorched, General Quinn was missing 2 of his 6 arms, and the entire group moved with the shell-shocked expressions of beings who had just learned that the universe contained things their technology couldn't handle. The depot, General Quinn wheezed through his damaged vocal apparatus. "Is it secure?" "Completely," Vex confirmed. "Rex is maintaining watch." They approached the entrance where Rex sat motionless in the shadows, his gray fur blending perfectly with the twisted metal surroundings. To the casual observer, he looked like just another piece of debris from the battle. "Your animal appears to be sleeping," Zlock observed with what remained of his earlier condescension. "Rather unprofessional for a guard, wouldn't you say?" "Yeah," Vex replied mildly. "Rex really doesn't care about your opinion of his work ethic." That's when the shadows moved. 5 Shadowkin raiders materialized from their cloaking fields simultaneously, their stealth technology perfect enough to fool every sensor the aliens possessed. They had been waiting, motionless, for exactly this moment when the depot's defenses would be at their weakest and the prize within reach. Rex didn't even seem to notice them. Ambassador Zlock opened his mouth to deliver what was probably going to be a scathing comment about lazy human pets, but the words died as the first Shadowkin took a step toward the depot's entrance. Rex moved like death itself had gotten tired of waiting. There was no warning, no growl, no preparatory crouch. One moment he was a sleeping wolf, the next he was apex predator incarnate, flowing through the shadows with movements so fluid they seemed to bend reality. The first Shadowkin had time to look surprised before Rex's jaws closed around his throat with the finality of geological processes. The second raider managed to raise his weapon before Rex spun and took his arm off at the shoulder. The third actually got off a shot which missed because Rex was no longer where physics said he should be. The fourth and fifth Shadowkin tried to run. This proved to be a fundamental misunderstanding of how wolves work. Rex hunted them through the twisted metal forest with the patience of something that had been refined by millions of years of evolution. He didn't hurry, didn't rush, didn't waste energy on unnecessary displays of aggression. He simply moved through the shadows like he owned them, eliminating threats with the kind of clinical efficiency that made alien military doctrine look like kindergarten finger painting. When he returned to his position by the depot entrance, his fur was unmarked and his breathing was steady. He settled back into his watching position and resumed looking like nothing more threatening than a very large, very tired dog. The aliens stared in complete silence. That, General Quinn finally managed, was. That was Rex doing his job, Vex said calmly. Same thing he's been doing for the past 3 hours while you were learning that advanced technology is only as good as the beings using it. Ambassador Zlok's voice came out as barely a whisper. How did he detect them? Our sensors showed nothing. Because your sensors look for heat signatures, electromagnetic disturbances, and gravitational anomalies, Vex explained. Rex smells fear, hears heartbeats, and feels the tiny air currents that move when something invisible thinks it's being clever. Rex yawned, showing teeth that had just redesigned the local ecosystem, and settled his massive head on his paws. His amber eyes remained alert, constantly scanning the shadows for anything else that might threaten his pack. 40,000 years of partnership, Vex continued, settling down beside his friend. We didn't domesticate wolves, Ambassador. We became partners with the most successful predator evolution ever produced. General Quinn looked at the scattered remains of what had been 5 perfectly cloaked elite soldiers, then at the wolf who had eliminated them without breaking a sweat. I think, he said carefully, we may need to revise our tactical assessments of human military doctrine. Rex's tail wagged once, which in wolf language roughly translated to, took you long enough to figure that out. The formal debriefing took place 3 days later aboard the Galactic Council flagship, with representatives from 17 different species gathered to analyze what was already being called the Zirian 7 incident. Vex sat at the conference table with Rex beside him, both of them displaying the kind of calm patience that came from knowing the universe had already proven their point. Ambassador Zlok cleared his throat, a sound that emerged as a series of nervous clicks. Commander Thornfield, the Council owes you an apology. Do you now? Vex replied mildly. Our initial assessment of human canine military partnerships was incomplete. That's a diplomatic way of saying spectacularly wrong, but I appreciate the effort. General Quinn leaned forward, his remaining arms gesturing expressively. The tactical effectiveness of your wolves exceeded all our projections. How is such biological efficiency possible? Vex scratched behind Rex's ears, earning a contented rumble that made several aliens shift nervously in their seats. General, you're asking the wrong question. It's not how it's possible, it's why we never tried to improve on something that was already perfect. But surely, interjected Colonel Vreeks, a crystalline being whose species had mastered quantum computing, artificial intelligence could replicate these capabilities with greater reliability. Could it? Vex asked. Your AI predicted 0% chance of real hostiles during the exercise. Rex knew we were in danger the moment we entered Zirian 7's atmosphere. He gestured to the holographic display showing casualty reports. Your thermal sensors detected nothing. Scout tracked 18 invisible enemies and neutralized every one. Your quantum scanners failed completely. Shadow eliminated their entire command structure before they knew she existed. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and Rex's steady breathing. The point isn't that technology is useless, Vex continued. The point is that some problems require solutions that took millions of years to develop. When you're facing an enemy that can fool every sensor you've ever invented, it helps to have a partner whose ancestors were hunting invisible prey before your species discovered fire. Ambassador Zlok's scales rippled with what might have been embarrassment or admiration. The Council would like to propose a formal exchange program. Perhaps our species could benefit from similar partnerships. Good luck with that, Vex said cheerfully. Wolves chose humans for very specific reasons. We're pack animals, we hunt cooperatively, and we've spent 40,000 years learning to communicate with each other. Most importantly, we never tried to improve on the relationship by making it more complicated. You're saying it cannot be replicated? General Quinn asked. I'm saying you can't download 40,000 years of evolutionary partnership. You can't program it, you can't manufacture it, and you definitely can't shortcut it by throwing advanced technology at the problem. Colonel Vrix's crystalline structure pulsed thoughtfully. Then how do we adapt our military doctrine to account for capabilities we cannot replicate? Rex lifted his head and fixed the colonel with that amber stare that had been making superior beings reconsider their assumptions since before the dawn of civilization. Vrix's pulsing slowed to a nearly imperceptible flicker. You start by understanding that the galaxy is full of partnerships you don't recognize, Vex said. Humans and wolves, Centaurians and their symbiotic navigation organisms. The hive mind species that you all think are individual creatures, but are actually collective intelligences. The universe is built on cooperation, not domination. He stood, Rex flowing to his feet with liquid grace. The exercise taught you that advanced technology has limits. But the real lesson is simpler. Sometimes the old ways are old because they work. As they headed for the door, Ambassador Zlock called out, "Commander, what should we tell our military strategists about incorporating these insights?" Vex paused at the threshold and smiled the kind of smile that had terrified enemies across 3 sectors. Tell them to remember that humans never stopped partnering with wolves for a reason. And that reason just saved your ammunition depot. Rex wagged his tail once and followed his human out of the chamber, leaving behind a room full of aliens who were finally beginning to understand that some technologies couldn't be improved upon, they could only be respected. 6 months later, the Galactic Council's official military manual included a new chapter titled Evolutionary Partnership Doctrine. It was required reading for all command staff, though rumor had it that most species were still trying to figure out how to domesticate their local predators. The results were reportedly both hilarious and occasionally tragic, which was exactly what Vex had expected. Some lessons, it seemed, could only be learned the hard way. Rex couldn't have cared less about their educational struggles. He had more important things to worry about, like that interesting smell coming from the mess hall and whether his human was going to share those ration bars that tasted almost like real food. Some priorities, after all, transcended species barriers.